let's start with some ACC basketball stuff from last night. The Wolfpack got to win 3. Otherwise, there's no ACC tournament because actually, the more I think about it, they can't get away with 2 because either Notre Dame or Cal is going to win 1 because they play each other, which means that one of those teams would definitely stay ahead of them. Although I guess they could still win 2, and I don't know, whatever.
They're not winning 3. So
they're not, exactly. How did this team, is it acceptable that this team is in this spot?
Look, I equate it a little bit with Florida State football. I mean, you can hit on the transfer portal, and he did last year with DJ Horn and Mohamed Diarra, but he whiffed this year, and it happens. That's the nature of retooling your team with transfers every year. It's an inexact science. So, I'm willing to give him a little bit of a break. That and Mike James not playing a single game this year.
Yeah.
But it was not a well-constructed team. There's no go-to guy. Just a total mess.
Yeah, okay. So I agree there is no go-to guy, and the portal certainly didn't bear fruit as it has in the past. But I still think that there's enough good there where for this team to have just 4 wins in this ACC seems like something else was going on.
Yeah, the thing that I will gig Keats on is that I think that at a certain point in the season, he should have sold out for his young guys. Mm-hmm. Paul McNeil should have been in the lineup a lot earlier, and he should have given him the Terquavion Smith, green light to shoot whenever he wants to. I mean, the kid scored, 70-something points in a high school game? He should have had Trey Parker in there for big minutes a lot earlier. Dennis Parker Jr. should have been playing a lot more. And so I think that, he stayed with the same thing way too long, and it clearly wasn't working. And maybe it wouldn't have worked with the young guys, but my God, you have to try something different because, at a certain point, you bang your head against the wall enough times, you realize that it hurts and you stop, right?
Theoretically, yes, that's the way it's supposed to work. Like, again, last night they got off to a bad start. They had to win the game last night. I mean, it was just non-negotiable. Get off to a bad start, but then they get back in it. And then all of a sudden, like, why is this guy shooting a 3? Why is this guy shooting a 3? They're like 3 bad shots in a row, and they cut it to 8. And it was actually right after a Trey Parker steal, and he takes a 3. I didn't hate the shot. I didn't love the shot, but I didn't hate it. Would have loved it more if it had gone in, but it didn't. They didn't get the rebound, and I think the whole game disintegrated.
Adam,
from there.
The most confounding and really frustrating thing about this NC State team is that you've seen what they're capable of. The Duke game at Cameron until the last 3 minutes. The Wake Forest game. It's there, but why is it not there from game to game? And again, that one you have to put on Keats.
Yeah, I agree. I was completely fooled by the Duke game. I thought that team is going to win a lot of games, and then that team never showed up again. All right, speaking of Wake Forest, for the entirety of the Steve Forbes era, it had been about offense until this year, and this team was rooted in defense. And then last night against a very, very unimpressive Virginia team, apart from really one player, they decided not to defend. In a game they couldn't lose. Mm-hmm. Do you have an explanation for that?
And they didn't defend the game before that against NC State.
That's true, they didn't, yeah. Maybe they decided we're going to go back to our roots.
Yeah, but this is their MO. I mean, they did the same thing last year. You remember the Kyle Filipowski wounded knee game? They won that, and that supposedly got them in the tournament.
Right.
And then they, shot themselves in the foot, for lack of a better term, a couple of times and ended up out of the tournament. And, it's confounding. Now, here's the thing about Wake. While NC State is done, and you know what? Being put out of their misery here and not go to Charlotte is probably the best thing because they weren't going to win it there anyway. So their fans should just save the money, stay home and watch replays of last year's tournament and just kind of, relive the glory. But Wake still actually has a pathway to get into the tournament. It's
sure
very implausible, but go to Cameron and win next week, and you're back in the picture. Or go to Charlotte and win 3 straight games or 4 straight games. It is plausible, but it ain't going to happen. And you have to start wondering. Steve Forbes. It's much better than the Danny Manning and the Jeff Bezdelek era.
Right.
But you have to ask the question, has the Steve Forbes era plateaued? Is this as good as they're going to get under Steve Forbes? And the answer to that question is not going to come from John Curry. It's not going to come from the fans. It's going to come from Mitch Shaw. And, if he says, I'm not giving any more money, or I'm going to like dry up the pipeline there, then they're going to make a change. But if Mitch says, we're still better off than we were with Danny Manning, I'm going to give him another year or two, then he'll stay. But I would say he's in real trouble.
Yeah, at the very least. And I love Steve Forbes, and he is
I do too.
Affable and personality plus, and he's got good coaching in his background. It's not like he hasn't been successful. You don't advance to where he has advanced without having a level of success in your past on your resume. But at some point, they do have to start making the NCAA tournament and winning games. And I don't think they're going to be in it. If you examine Wake and North Carolina, first of all, the difference is Wake beat UNC, but I think it's beyond that, is that Wake's got one win that Carolina doesn't have, and that's at SMU. Carolina's played a much tougher schedule. You flip
Wake
those,
also beat Michigan back in
right.
November.
Yeah, before Michigan was good, right? But still,
well, but I mean, but
now it works.
To listen to the talking heads, November and December games mean everything, right?
They do. They do matter because they set the narrative, and it's unfortunate the ACC played the SEC 1,000 times and only won 2 of those games. Duke and Clemson, the 2 real good teams in the league. Although I throw Louisville kind of as a third wheel in that mix, but I don't think Wake's all that good. No. To me, the separator really is the SMU game, because Carolina's got a good win too. That win over UCLA, which was a comeback win, by the way. And I thought,
Adam, here's the thing. You mentioned UNC. Wake Forest's loss is the Tar Heels' gain right now, because I sincerely believe 4 ACC teams are getting in the tournament. And with Wake Forest dropping by the wayside, and SMU's resume very, very bare, although their net is great.
Yeah.
I think UNC can get in now without beating Duke. I think if they don't stumble against Miami and I can't remember who else, Virginia Tech,
yeah,
and they win 1 game in Charlotte, I think they're in.
I think they got to win 2 in Charlotte. And I think they could get swept by Duke 3 times. I think they could lose to Duke 3 times and still get in. I don't think.
But losing to Duke helps them, though. Because it's Duke.
I don't know if it helps.
And that's the way the net works.
I don't know if it helps, but it probably shouldn't hurt. Like, they will have more losses to teams on the one line than anybody in the history of basketball. Because we could be looking at Duke, Florida, Alabama, and Auburn, right? Although Florida's loss to Georgia might have gotten in the way of that, who knows? But we could be looking at those 4 teams on the one line, and Carolina could have have 6 losses to teams on the one line by the time we get to the end of the season. But I think if they
get them in.
Yeah, it could. Well, that wouldn't get them. But if they could beat either Louisville or Clemson, Louisville more likely than Clemson, in my opinion. Clemson is a terrible matchup for the Tar Heels. But
Clemson's a really good team and a very underrated team that could really, I think, could be a Final Four team.
And physical, and a physical team, which is bad for UNC. So let me get to the other part of this equation, because you and I agree. I don't think Carolina's done yet at all, and I think they maybe 60% chance they get an at-large bid without beating Duke. But let me float this idea, because Connor O'Neill brought it up yesterday. We have great respect for Connor O'Neill. I say that even if you don't.
I do.
I know. He's great. So Duke just played Miami, and nobody wanted to see that. That was not fair. It was not fit for human consumption to watch that game. And by the way, Tyrese Proctor appears to be okay. Just a bone bruise, should be fine. However long.
Kyle Filipowski injury.
Yeah, whatever. I'm glad he's okay. He's a pretty big piece, and we can discuss your thoughts on Duke without him, because I saw you on Twitter talking about it. But what if we had the league not have that Duke-Miami game? Like we say, you know what? We can't have that game. Who's playing Virginia Tech that night? We'll make something up. Clemson was playing. Louisville played Virginia Tech.
Yes.
Instead of Louisville and Virginia Tech playing and Duke and Miami playing, Let's let Virginia Tech go to Miami, Louisville come to Cameron Indoor Stadium, and let's put a better game on television for people.
I agree. And, it's plausible because as long as the home teams are still the same, what difference does it make who they play? So you could have the two visiting teams just switch itineraries. I mean, you've got the rooms at the hotel already reserved. The flights, no, seriously, you just flip-flop. And I think it's doable. I mean, look, the NFL flex schedules all the time. And, as long as you don't mess with the TV networks, and believe me, they would love it, and you don't mess with the people who bought tickets, then why not? Let's do it. Let's do it.
Here's the thing about this whole the whole notion of flex scheduling, because that's really what we're talking about. And the ACC has sort of floated some crazy things at the end of the regular season in football, right? About this team playing this team to advance, have a semifinal. Shouldn't we make our schedules for television now?
Well, why not? Because that's who dictates it.
The number one thing about everything is inventory and as many good games as we can possibly have. And as long as we're not going to have, we have 18 teams in basketball. So you play two teams twice and everybody else once, and that's still probably too many conference games. Let's just have the best teams play each other and let it all shake out and not be worried about seeding or anything like that.
And Adam, you know what? If you're the ACC and you are fighting a perception problem that is just, off the charts bad, wouldn't you want to showcase your best teams on the national platform as opposed to having, people have to sit through Miami and Virginia Tech?
In basketball.
No, seriously.
Right?
Yeah.
Or sometimes in football too, yeah.
I mean, keep them as far away from the public eye as possible and just showcase your best teams.
Yeah, put them on Plus. On the ACC Network Extra. Miami this year should have been relegated only to ACC Network Extra. We shouldn't have had to watch them on any sort of not over the air, but I guess sometimes over the air. It was what a terrible year it was for the University of Miami, including it started with missing out on the college football playoff. And I actually think I know we weren't going to talk about this. I think Miami got screwed more than Alabama got screwed.
I agree. Because you know what? Miami did it to themselves. Just go to Syracuse and hold on to a 21-point lead.
True. That's a very good point. It really was about Miami blowing it. But when you add it all up at the end, they could have gotten Indiana's spot more than Indiana.
Agreed.
Not Alabama. The Alabama-Indiana conversation, there were 2 wins separating that. And in a 12-game college football season, 2 wins is significant. One, I think one.
It was never going to happen anyway because Miami's an ACC team, and we're talking about the Big Ten SEC block, the evil empire.
Yes, that is true. And who knows how it's going to shake out? Do you think the ACC can hold any leverage over the SEC and the Big Ten in any current conversations about reseeding the college football playoff this year?
No.
Yeah,
and I think
agree.
that Jim Phillips should be happy that they're talking about giving him 2 spots and just run with it because
I wouldn't.
There's a good chance that, in a lot of years you're only going to deserve 1. So, I think.
Here's what I would do if I were Jim Phillips. Brett Friedlander, by the way, Saturday Down South, ACC columnist, is joining us here. This is what I would do. I would be screaming for what the greater good needs. Because at some point, the college football universe, the ecosystem that we live in, somebody has to be the loud voice that says, all of this stuff might be good for you in the SEC and you in the Big Ten, but it isn't good for the whole. And everybody needs to hear that over and over and over and over again.
Kumbaya, Adam.
And nobody's doing that, except maybe you and me. Maybe we have to do it.
Kumbaya. That sounds nice, and let's all go around the campfire and say let's all do the greater good thing. But that's not how it works. When you're
true.
outvoted, you can yell all you want, and
right.
I don't want to get political here, but it's basically the same thing in Congress. I mean, you can, if you're in the minority, you can yell all you want, but if the other side's got the votes, too bad.
I was taking a sip, so I wouldn't say anything. Yes, you're 100% correct. Duke without Tyrese Proctor would have been what to you?
Pretty devastating in the long term, But the good news here is that they didn't give up on Caleb Foster, and Caleb Foster doesn't appear to have given up on them, even though he's really been out of the rotation for the last 4 or 5 games. But when they put him in there, I mean, he's a bucket. I mean, he's scored like double figures in 4 of the last 5 games he's played in, and he's played like 6 minutes in each game. So I think in the short term, against Wake Forest, against Florida State on Saturday, they will be fine. I think as long as Tyrese is back for the UNC game and definitely by the tournament and is in full health by the time the NCAA starts, they'll be fine. But I think in the short term, they're going to be okay. I mean, the way Isaiah Evans has stepped up really has added a dimension to that team that, I think he'll take up some of the scoring slack while Tyrese is out. But in a way, it could actually be good because it just kind of gets Foster back in the groove and gets his confidence back a little bit, and he might be able to help them down the road.
Yeah, I think Duke has cover at that position. Yeah. But again, Proctor being out long term, I still think they could have mitigated it because of not only Foster, but really Evans. Evans has been just tremendous, and he's been good on both ends of the floor. He's been a very good defender, and that's the other part of Proctor that they would miss is his ability to defend. Are they national championship good?
Yeah, absolutely. Did you see the Illinois game? I mean, that would kind of shut up Duke has never played anybody because they're in the ACC people. That kind of took that one out of the equation.
Yeah, part of me wished it would have been more competitive, but it was a curb stomping from the beginning. So, Brett Friedlander, Saturday Down South, ACC columnist. Are you going to a college baseball game this weekend?
Of course I am.
Where are you going?
I'm actually going to be down in Greenville at East Carolina because my friend Tracy Charolette, who I met at the D2 World Series, was the manager of Southern Indiana when they won 2 national championships. I covered them for their local paper. He's at Indiana State now, and they're playing Virginia Tech in the Keith LeClaire Classic, so I'll be down there tomorrow watching them.
Very good. We're going to talk to Aaron Fitt of D1Baseball.com next hour about ACC baseball and some ECU stuff as well. So I wanted you to get a college baseball shout out there. Thank you very much.
Anytime, Adam.
Brett Friedlander.